Hi, and welcome to Public Affairs Public Access on Houston Media Source TV. I'm Gene Preuss with the League of Women Voters of the Houston area. Today, we're going to be talking about the League. A lot of times on the show, we discuss various issues related to the League, but today we're actually going to be talking about the League, what we've done this year, and what we're looking forward to next year. And actually, next year is a very important year because we're going to be celebrating the centennial of the passage of the 19th Amendment. So today I have some very special guests and kind of my bosses here with us. We have the president of the League of Women Voters of the Houston area, Mary Jane Mudd. And thank you for being on the show tonight. And to her right, Annie Johnson Benifield is also a professor of political science for Lone Star College, Tomball, and is vice president for voter services. And to my left, we have a familiar face, and that's Taya Youngs, who's a UHD honor student and also a rising star this year. And so with the League of Women Voters. And so welcome to you all, and we're going to be talking about the League and what it's done this year, what we do. Sometimes people, hear about the League of Women Voters. I once had a past president of the League of Women Voters come to my institution, UHD, and talk. And somebody raised their hand and they go, well, why is this just about women? I was like, it's not. But people have misconceptions about what the League is and what the League does. So we're going to talk about the League today. And also, as I said, what we did this year and what we're looking forward to in 2020. This is our Christmas edition, and I've got my Christmas tie on. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's for the spirit, right? So what I want to do is I just want to just start off. Welcome to our Facebook viewers. We are on Facebook Live right now. This is the first time we've done this, so we're already starting off the year, branching off into new directions. So it's exciting. Mary Jane, so you're president of the League, and you just came in this year.
I did.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit. What is, if somebody comes up to you and says, what is the League of Women Voters, how do you respond? What do you say?
Well, the League of Women Voters is all about empowering voters and defending democracy. Now, that's the first thing I say, and if I've got a couple more minutes with that person, I'll say we do it a number of ways, and let me give you three. One way we do it is through voter registration. Annie will tell you more about that in a while because she's the head of voter services. But we do so much, our volunteers do so much to register new citizens. In fact, nearly 30,000 by the end of this year. Very exciting. Second way we do it, not necessarily in priorities here, all important. Another way we do it is through the dissemination of information. So that would include our voter's guide. A lot of people are familiar with that. I even bumped into a friend today who was asking me what I've been up to lately. When I mentioned the League, he said, I look at that voter's guide with every election. This last election on November 5th, we created that guide in 4 different languages, the only league to do that. English, Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese. Another way that we empower voters and defend democracy is through activism. We commission studies around very important issues. We follow up on those issues. We keep legislators accountable. And I know that through the course of the hour, we'll talk about that.
So one of the things that I think that you mentioned that may confuse some people is we talk about the League of Women Voters. We are the League of Women Voters of the Houston area, and every area has a different league. So whenever you said that we're the only ones that do it, so, I want to just be clear that other people do it. other leagues around the state and around the nation do print out voters guides, but we did it in 4 languages here, and that was quite an
Houston.
undertaking, wasn't it?
Right, Annie, that we were the only, exactly.
Yeah,
And thank you for the clarification.
That's pretty impressive. So, Annie, as Vice President of Voter Services, you've got a big role because how many vice presidents are there? There's like 4, right?
Right, but only one is
one
responsible for. Well, there's only one Annie.
So we'll talk about some of the other roles that we have. But as far as voter services, like Mary Jane said, sometimes that is the most prominent and the one that whether or not the average citizen knows that's under your domain right now. What all are you responsible for?
Well, the vice president of
So we've
Voter
only got an
Services-
hour.
Okay, we only have an hour. Okay, let me tell you about those things. That's too short amount of time. Actually, the naturalization ceremony that Mary Jane just mentioned is one of the big issues that we do. This year, next week, we're going to have a naturalization ceremony. We would have had 16 naturalization ceremonies this year. And each one of those ceremonies, there were over 2,000 petitioners sworn in as new citizens of the United States. And our average rate of voter registration is 88% for all of those ceremonies that have taken place this year. 15 ceremonies. Next week we have another one. We would have registered, as Mary Jane said, over 30,000 in that one spot at that one location at M.O. Campbell. That is huge. That you kind of have a captive audience. We have a core of volunteers who come in, who are volunteer deputy voter registered. They talk to the people in their section. They encourage them to vote and participate in the political process. Most of the judges are very receptive to the idea and will put a plug out and say the League of Women Voters is here. Please see them in terms of the voter registration, and we get to do that. And so that's one of the big important works we do. But we also do non-naturalization. We refer to voter registration outside of the naturalization ceremony as non-naturalization voter registration, and we partner with
v.P.Voter.
NALEO, other organizations that do voter registration. We partner with them and do voter registration. We partner with some of the other leagues. We often get calls from college campuses, corporations, businesses. Recently we did something with the
SPA?
The Society for Performing Arts when Martha Graham's. We partnered with them when the Martha Graham Dance Company came. We partnered with them and did voter registration in the lobby at that particular event. It was an outreach effort, and they were doing it as part of the centennial celebration in terms of women getting the right to vote. That was primarily their marketing tool. The voter guide, not everybody knows about the voter guide, but that's a huge thing that's under the umbrella of under the Vice President of Voter Service. Jackie Alfred is the chair of that committee, and she's absolutely fabulous. She has been doing this for years, and she got a core group of people who work with her to ensure that we get that done in a timely manner. And the idea that in, 18 months, less than 18 months, the idea that we're doing 3 of them, because the election after election after election, we're having quite a few succession of elections. So that is also, and you know, of course, Jean, the conversation with the candidates. It's a big plug. You were able to interview
did over 80 candidates in, I think it was almost 20 shows.
It's amazing.
In one of the shows we had this in this studio, our technical producer Mark Pirtle set up, and I don't know how we fit 15 candidates for one of the shows. We had 15 candidates in here, and we had a moderator, myself, and we had several other moderators, and a timekeeper. And we had some students who volunteered to help with the candidates, and Taya was one of those who was here, and she was here at almost every show.
Great.
I mean, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and I want to thank all our other League of Women Voter people who helped with the moderating, because I mean I could not. I mean it was we did 4 shows a week, 2 on Thursday and 2 on Friday. So it was just tremendous. And the important thing is, in addition to that, is on top of that, we were doing the voters guide. So we were really doing a lot.
Just crazy,
you
yeah.
know, to get that information out. So, and I always tell people, you know, we want to have better informed citizens. We want to be able to make
That's right.
informed choices, and this all works to that. And so that's right. And you and I sat in on some of those conversations that we had when we were hammering out the questions.
Yes.
And trying to put that together. I had never seen that before, but that
Really?
I mean, it was,
Okay. I didn't realize it.
it was a real process.
It really is, and we try to capture the essence of the information that we think voters want to know, or potential voters going to know about the candidates in terms of the issues. And one of the greatest thing I think about the voter guide that most people don't know, whatever the candidates submit to us is translated. We don't edit it.
We don't edit.
Revise it. We don't do anything else to it. We put it in exactly as they stated. And when we translate it into those languages, other languages. So we are trying to give the voters direct information from the candidate. And I have to admit, Jean, that you made the whole thing seem so effortless. You and your team of people here made it seem so effortless in terms of doing the conversation with the candidates. That was a major feat. Because I know for the voter guide, there was 164 candidates that we reached out to and contacted. And unfortunately, some candidates don't respond. We do follow-ups, and they don't respond. But I am actually right now, and with Mary Jane, coordinating an effort to try to talk to the Democratic, the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party here in Harris County for them to coordinate with their candidates, the people who are running under their party banner, to help facilitate them responding when we ask them the questions or send the questions to them, so we get a better response rate.
That was, you know, I was to say that we had about 80 candidates, and we also did District 48.
People.
Well, but there were 164, but yeah, and so we only, well, you also, on the voters guide, there were more campaigns than what we covered. We just focused on Houston City Council, the mayor, and the controller, because that was plenty.
The propositions were in there too.
And and I will say that I was surprised that there were some people who just did not respond. Now, some of that is because of they had other obligations. People said we didn't have the right contact information on some of them too, and that's just a communication issue because we just went with what we had. And so I think, you know, I think it's very important if you're running for any kind of elected position. This idea is you have to get your message out to the voters. And one of the things that I really appreciated, and I told the candidates this, is that, you know, after every show, I said, you know, I don't really know who I would vote for if I were voting for everybody, because so many of the candidates who responded had really thought of the issues. They had thought of their positions. They were very, very nice. I mean, we sat around and we talked to them afterwards, and it was really, I thought, an educational experience. And I think more candidates need to make sure that's part of their, and need to know how to do that. Because, you know, we had some people here who were running for the first time. We had some 18-year-olds, there were about 3 18-year-olds who were running. So some very young people. And I think that education process is very helpful. And I think the league could help both parties and even some of the independents.
And that's why we're doing the outreach to both parties to see if the parties can actually exert some influence with the candidates who are running under the party banner to participate in this process in terms of getting voter information, because both parties are interested in building their organizational structure and having people in the pipeline for higher office. So it's important that they get their people out, they have a voice, they talk to people, and this is one forum, and they can always pull up the video clip and show it because it's on YouTube to other people to get them to see what they said in response to particular things. And I think that's important. Information empowers people to make informed decisions about who they want to best represent them in the political process.
Empowering voters. And you know, with conversations with the candidates, it gives candidates the opportunity to really to communicate who they are in a comfortable environment. The forums are important, but you've got, you know, there's timing. There's only so much you can say in a very short period of time. And I think that's something that's very special about this, for sure.
It is, and Houston Media Source, we're in their studio right now, and they do a good job helping us. So, Taya, we're going to talk a little bit about the Rising Stars in a second. You're a college student. What does it mean to you to learn? And you're in the leadership program that Rising Stars, that League of Women Voters does. So, have you been to a meeting yet?
Yes, we went to one.
Okay, so what did you learn? You had the first one, right?
Yeah,
so what did you learn about the League of Women Voters?
So I learned more in detail about exactly what we're going to do. And it was kind of what you guys were talking about the naturalization ceremonies. We're going to be there. We're going to be, helping register people to vote and things like that. When I first, when I applied for this program, what caught my eye was just being involved, the civic engagement. I wanted to do more of that. But now I'm seeing I want to be more hands-on with the actual voter registration. And I think that's awesome for me. Because it's when I did the conversations with the candidates, like you said, it was educational, hearing everything of what everyone had to say. So I would go and talk to my friends about it, and I'd be like, they said this and they said that. Who would you vote for, and this and this and that? And I didn't realize how many of my friends didn't vote.
Oh dear.
I'm like, are you serious?
So you will will help them. You will help them understand the importance.
Oh,
right.
yes. Oh, man. I don't want to hear any excuses now, especially once I'm able to register people to vote. I don't want to hear any excuses. Okay, here we go. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. So I'm looking forward to all of that.
I want to remind everyone, thank you. I want to remind everybody that if you'd like to call in and ask us questions about the League and what the League is doing in the area, you can do that at 713-807-1794. The number's on the screen at 713-807-1794. Now, we are on Facebook Live, and if you're watching on Facebook, I know sometimes people they thumb in a message. I guess we could do that, but we haven't set that up yet. This is brand new for us, and we're like, whoa.
It's not that new of a technology.
So it's new to us. But
dear.
So you can do that too. You can call in, and we'll take your phone calls. That way, everybody can hear it, and we know what's going on. Why did you get involved with the League of Women Voters? What was it about the League that attracted you? And so you said, I think I need to join and be a participant.
So I'm going to be very upfront about this. And, you've got some folks here who are involved for different reasons. You've got Annie who, 20 years or more, doctorate in public policy. I joined a few years ago because I decided that I didn't want to, let's say, air my political interests on social media. We are in a divisive time right now in our country, and I just wanted to learn more and do something. And I came at it really not as knowledgeable. I've been very involved in the local community and leadership positions, civic engagement, boards, local and national, but not the political space. And so I wanted to join an organization that's nonpartisan, perhaps register voters, get to know that space, that side of civic engagement. So I joined a few years ago. One thing led to another. I was honored to be on the board and chaired some large events and got an opportunity to be president. And so she's laughing because there's a lot of us, we're all volunteers at the League of Women Voters. It's a passion for us. It's a matter of the heart that we want to empower voters and defend democracy. But for me, I'm relatively new to all this, and it has been such an opportunity to learn such important things and get to know people like Annie and now you.
Annie, what about you? What attracted you? How long have you been a member?
Well, I've been a member at least 20 years.
Oh, okay.
For the National League, and when I was at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, I participated in forums. They did something on public transportation, and I was one of the, because they do civic engagement in terms of advocacy about issues that's important to a city, and Birmingham was having transportation-related issues, and I participated because I was teaching at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. And so I participated then, and then I moved here and started teaching at Lone Star College Tomball. And one of my colleagues, Nancy Quall, she said, we're going to go to the naturalization ceremony. And I was like, what time we have to be there? She said, no later than 7. So that was my first experience going to M.O. Campbell. Sam Kiefer was the person of voter services and naturalization. And when I heard about the struggle in terms of the league, used to stand out in the parking lot with clipboards trying to register the new citizens because they weren't allowed in. And so it took years to work toward the goal of getting inside and being able to hand out voter registration cards. Right. That was a process. It didn't happen overnight. We take for granted now that it happens and we think nothing of it, but it was a process. And other leagues around the state are calling us in. How did you do it? We want to do that too, because they're having naturalization ceremonies literally everywhere. But that was one of the major efforts, and the naturalization, going in there and registering people to vote. And then I got involved in other efforts that the league has had. Naturalization was the biggest thing initially in terms of my being involved. And I got on the board and participated in other activities. And now, Vice President of Voter Service, everything is under, lots of things rather, are under that umbrella, and lots of things. And so it gives me an opportunity to see the big picture in terms of the league.
That's right.
To see how various aspects work together, and planning for the naturalization ceremony is really critical because we're not in control of that process. It's a U.S. District Court session, a federal judge presides. They control this particular space in U.S. Custom and Immigration Services. So you learn to create partnerships and work with various entities, the courts, Customs and Immigration Services. The people at MOCAMA have been absolutely magnificent.
It's incredible.
In terms of, they allow us to keep our stuff there. Because prior to that, we were hauling all of that stuff every time we came. And so it's really incredible. And I can't be remiss without talking about our core volunteers, the volunteer deputy voter registers. When we send out a call, people give of their time, show up early, because sometimes the naturalization starts at 9 o'clock. That's 8:30 is the earliest ever it start that I've known. But you have to show up early.
When you have 5 in the morning.
When you have 2,600 people.
She does.
Actually, yeah, by 5:30 we're there and we're setting up. We try to make sure our volunteers have a space to sit because it's a federal court session. So when the judge say, everybody needs to be seated, that they have a seat in that arena when it's 2,600 people. And we try to tell them make sure they come early because parking can be a bit testy depending on
you
where.
You can get a workout if you park.
And walking up and down those, we're in a basketball arena. So people have to have the ability to walk up those steps to do all of that. And so we have a core group. When we send out the call, oftentimes we have to turn down people because we have enough. And last time we had 47 individuals. We have people who worked a table and 47 individuals, and we registered 1,700, almost 2,000 people.
That's like military logistics.
It is. It is. And I'm telling you,
I am going to quit complaining about all those conversations with the candidates. I thought that was a lot of work. I take it all back.
I just because she's again from the newer perspective. I've been to 3, all of 3. You've been to hundreds and hundreds over the years, and it is so moving to go and see 2,500 people who have waited, who have. It means everything. They've got their babies, they've got their grandmas or the mother-in-law, and they've just their entire families in these seats, and they're holding the flags. And it's just the first time I cried. It was just amazing. The other thing, though, Jean, is it is quite a logistical process, and being a newcomer. The ladies and the men who have done this a while, they don't want me screwing anything up, So I'm running up and down the stairs and I'm saying hi to people, and they're like, okay, now you need to say it this way and do this. They're lovely, but again, now that I understand from Annie what it took to be able to have this opportunity, it's a process you got to respect.
And you have to be nonpartisan. You can tell them about elections. We try to ensure that the volunteers talk to the section they've been assigned to get to know the people, because people feel an allegiance to you if you connect with them and talk to them about who you are and why you're there.
That's right.
And they tell you about what countries they're from. And we had people from 121 countries last time. And we've had as many as people from 130 countries there, from literally places all around the world that we probably haven't heard of, some of the countries. But they will feel an allegiance to you and make sure they fill out their voter registration card and give it back to you at the end. And sometimes the judges are so gracious, they will allow extra time. Once they gavel, the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service will allow them some times before they start calling the colors. And we can get, I think the highest participation rate we've had this year is like 90% of the people who were present, the petitioners, actually registered to vote at a ceremony. So that's pretty exciting. Our average right now is like 88%. So we're doing really well in that arena, in that space.
So I always am impressed at the number of people at those naturalization services because Linda Cohen, the former president, used to always post because this was one of her big focuses, and now I see why. Because there's other things that the league does. So, I mean, that is a big visible thing, the voters' guides, the conversation with the candidates. But I'm looking here at our board, and we've got a vice president for development, one for study and advocacy, one for marketing and communications. We've got a bunch of directors. We have we're looking for a vice president for membership.
Yes.
So there's this is a big organization. I go to the board meetings, and there's a bunch of people. Well, not a bunch, but I mean there's a good number of people there, and it's amazing at what everyone's doing. So can we
Very
talk about some of
dedicated.
these other, just touch on some of these other roles that we do besides?
Yeah, because Philip is over
ahead.
advocacy.
He's been on the show a couple times.
And yes, and he's very much involved with the Philip Yates, very much involved with the redistricting and the census count.
Fair maps, right.
Actually had forums on it where people came in as speakers, people from the state league, but from other entities too are interested in a fair map in terms of making sure, first of all, making sure everybody is counted for the census. That's critical. That is the most important thing. And then secondly, making sure that the maps are drawn fairly without this gerrymandering, because that increasingly is an issue across the country. And the National League has taken a position on that in terms of the fair vote count, in terms of the map. And they've also taken a position on the idea that they want to ensure that the Voting Rights Act is fixed. The Section 5 part and the Section 4 part, the part that deals with preclearance, and the 4 deals with the formulas that was the baseline for setting up the preclearances for areas that had previously discriminated. Amy Woodall, you could go ahead. Go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, I'd like to, we're giving people some, call-outs, because Amy Woodall is the CEO of Black Sheep Agency, which is an agency that focuses on supporting nonprofits, and they've done some incredible work nationally. For us, they've contributed really a tremendous amount of creativity and time to completely refresh our website. And that sounds like, okay, refreshing a website, but a lot of thought has gone into this. And sometimes I joke about, we're not your grandma's League of Women Voters here. But thank God for the grandmas who did what they did, so we could be where we are today, right? But we want to be sure that people understand that we have people of all ages in our organization. We have men. Well, look at you. You go to our board meetings. You're a guy. We have got to break this up a bit. We've got young men on the board. We've got young men and our rising stars, young women, and so we want to make sure that people of all backgrounds. We want to make sure that our marketing and the way we present ourselves is really representative of who we are. So if you go to our website, that's a brand new website, new images. We're refreshing Facebook and all of our and we'll make sure that Black Sheep, that again contributed their time for us, understands that. So that's one thing that's happening. I'm trying to think, we certainly have our VP and our treasurer and others. Who am I? I'm blanking right now. But something just I want to share. As we look to the future and as we look to 2020, we are doing some other things. For example, how can we ramp up volunteer engagement? We often hear from people who want to do something with the league, but they don't know what. And they definitely want to help with voter registration, and that's so important, but there's so much more. So we have created a committee, a volunteer engagement committee, that is right now determining opportunities with job descriptions. And it might sound minimal, but social media, the newsletters, certainly with, we're thinking of having coffees in different parts of the city that are still in Houston proper. Let's have coffees, let's talk about different issues, but who would organize those? So you know, if you continue to look at our website and our social media, you'll be learning a bit more about that. So, which VPs am I forgetting about?
Well,
oh my goodness, membership is important.
Yeah, membership.
Yeah.
Didn't Michelle just take that position? Did we just?
That would be development.
Development.
Yes,
She just
yes.
did
Michelle
development.
Levi is going to be helping us with raising some money because these things don't happen absolutely free of charge, especially the voter's guide. And then membership, we'd like to be focused a bit more on.
And as a plug for her, she did our Women Equality Day program.
That's right.
It was absolutely incredible. We even got the mayor to come out and be part of that event. Yes, it was really incredible that women came out. Not only women, but men came out, and it was a very successful Women Equality Day back in September. We did it in September. So we are just, the league is focused on trying to reach people and let people know what we're doing today, who we are today, compared. Because people say, well, this right to vote, women getting the right to vote happened like a long time ago. We're celebrating the centennial, so 100 years ago in terms of the suffrage amendment. But at the same time, there are other issues involving barriers that are currently being put in place to disenfranchise. And so we always want to be actively out front in terms of fighting to ensure that every citizen get an opportunity to participate in the political process, but not simply participate, but be informed in their participation in the process. And that's why voter information, the voter guide, and that's why the advocacy that the league does at the national and state level. And the surrounding communities have league chapters too. And we often partner with them to ensure that communities outreach is happening. And so I want to make sure that individuals know that the league is representing. And so sometimes people characterize and misrepresent the league because we take a position, advocacy in terms of issues, transportation, you know, the idea of transportation, the idea of open access and people having access to voting and participation. And so sometimes there's a mischaracterization of the league in terms of a liberal organization. But guess what? The idea of fighting for voting rights for women, getting women the right to vote, was not a status quo oriented event. It required advocating for change. And so advocating for individuals to become involved in the political process mean we're advocating for change. And so the idea when you advocate for change, oftentimes people mischaracterize you as being liberal if you don't want to maintain the status quo. And that's
You're going to go there, aren't you? You're going there. She's going there.
But here's consequence, though.
We've had a lot of conversations about this because I've been asked many times, you know, are you really nonpartisan? Or I thought it was a nonpartisan, you know, are you joining that group? And truthfully, we do not promote or oppose any candidate. We really don't. In fact, a friend today was kind of joking on my Facebook because I put something up, you know, go out and vote, whatever. And she goes, I'd love to know who you voted for, PM me. And I said, I'm not going to PM you, and I'm not going to tell you because I'm not going to. That's private message. You know. Because
I got that. I know I'm antiquated,
but I'm not. I mean, you know, we don't promote or oppose, and certainly as president, I'm not going to say anything. And so, but what Annie just explained though is that there still are positions, and before we take a position, we commission studies. We don't just grab a position. I mean, these are very serious situations, and if it's about empowering a voter or defending democracy, the league will be there. So that's something I've had to learn, you know, what nonpartisan really means.
So, you know, you're both touching on an issue, and you had brought this up before about Mary Jane, about, you know, people and partisanship. So one of the things when I'm talking to history students at college, and you're in my classes, so I want to ask you this. I want you to tell some secrets about your colleagues. I'm just kidding. I've heard from students that this very issue that you're bringing up is that, you know, you talk about politics, you talk about voting, you talk about, like you were saying, you know, and they go, well, you know, I don't want to get involved with that. I don't like the politics. I don't. One of my colleagues told me something, and I never really thought of it this way. She goes, you know, every time there's a decision to be made, that's a political question. Every time you make a decision, that's a political question. And I said, you know, I never really thought of it like that. But so So do you hear from your classmates and your colleagues that they don't like the political fighting right now, and so they kind of retreat from politics?
Yes. I also hear that they say they don't get into politics because they believe it doesn't affect them. I hear that a lot. Oh my goodness, I hear that a lot. And I'm like, that's what I like about the League of Women Voters, because you spread the information. You know, you make it very easy access for us to go and learn about things. And that's why I try to push it on my friends and family, because you say it doesn't affect you, but it does. And like one thing you said in class that like really stuck with me is you told us to definitely go vote for the local elections, because the local elections will affect us more than, you know, the presidential elections. Because everyone wants to go vote for president, but you don't go vote for the mayor, you don't go vote for city council and things like that. So like, I do hear that, and I try to, you know, tell them about it. And that's why I am involved with the League of Women Voters now, so I can become more educated on it and spread the information as well. Because I feel like us as young people, sometimes we don't want to listen to, you know,
I know.
our elders. I don't
Is
know
that
how
like
to
an
say it.
okay boomer thing? Is that where you're going there?
I don't know how to say it. So, they, you know, we don't want to listen. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if it comes from someone, you know, your
Right,
age, your
you're
colleague,
right.
it'll, you know, stick with them more, you know. Yeah.
As she
I'm just so
said,
glad you're doing that.
that
though,
matters.
too.
Because
Yeah.
Baratz and Berkerock are two political scientists, and they said non-decisions are decisions. So if you're deciding not to vote, you're making a decision, and it has consequences.
Yes.
Kind of like the laws of physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So your decision not to vote and participate in the political process actually create and reverberate across the country, across your local community, in terms of who's going to represent you or whether or not your interests will be represented in the political process at all. If you're not at the table, it's part of the discussion. How's your voice heard? And so I think young people in particular, because if you look at the national level in terms of politics, we spend far more resources on the elderly, the baby boomers, and generation, you know, those, you know, the great generation. We spend far more resources, capital at the national level in terms of the government on those individuals than we do on younger people. And if they don't think there are consequences, old people vote.
Yep.
You know, have a 65 to 70% turnout rate. And so that effectuate change, that facilitates the political process in terms of moving, and people are reluctant to touch or mess with policies or programs that affect those individuals. And so we have to be conscious of that.
I want to add something to that too. There's a saying that I've heard, you know, when you learn about stuff that happened like during the civil rights movements and the suffrage movement and things like that. And they said, I can't remember it exactly, but they said by not doing anything, you're helping the people that you're supposed to be going against. Do you know what saying I'm talking about? It's like by not doing anything at all, you're adding to the problem.
Yeah.
So that's what it is with voting as well. By you not voting, you know, you want to say, oh, I don't like this person, I don't like that person. Well, you didn't go vote to not have that person there. So how can you really say anything about
it?
it?
You know, the old saying is that evil triumphs when good people don't do anything.
Edwin Burke said that.
Yep.
Yeah.
713-807-1794, 713-807-1794. That's our number if you'd like to call in if you're watching us live, even on Facebook Live. I'm going to punch that. That's you know, social media. So you mentioned earlier we want to, you know, we don't want this to be an organization just of older people. We want to get younger people involved, right?
Both. Let's just say both, okay?
want
I'm
both,
not
right.
anti all
We
this.
want all people
We'll
involved.
be getting letters tomorrow, you know?
So we've got about 20 minutes left in the show. I'm going to ask this question. It's not a fair question, but can you kind of wrap up? What were the highlights of what the league did this past year in 2019?
Well, I'm sure we'll have different views or just supplementary views here for each other, but off the top of my head, the first thing I think about is how many people Annie's team registered. I mean, just so many people who are excited to be U.S. citizens and who want to bring that to the voting booth. So I'm very grateful for that. But our team did many other things as well. We did have a successful repast luncheon. And for those who don't know what that is, that's an annual event that we hold. Often it's at the Junior League, and we honor certain people who are absolutely worthy of being honored. This year, we celebrated immigrant Americans, all U.S. citizens who have come to this country and made a huge difference in our city. So that was a great event. I think, what did we have, like 400 people there, many, we had legislators, we had just a cross-section of people. Annie mentioned how we celebrated Women's Equality Day, having an event where we had the wonderful Nancy Sims, who is a political analyst often on NPR. She came and spoke to us about women suffragettes. I'm trying to think of the unknown women suffragettes or something like that, but just some ladies who really did things that we were not aware of. She came and gave a talk. Every day in every way, we're working on different things. Of course, the marketing refresh is very, very important, and changing some of our materials so that we can reach a broader audience, and what we're going to be doing with volunteer engagement. What do you think, Annie? What have I missed? It's going to be something obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, no, those are some of the big things that we did. Those are some of the activities in terms of community outreach where many people came to those forums, like Women Equality Day. You had people who were not members of the League of Women Voters who came. Actually, we got at least 2 memberships out of that. Some friends of mine, I invited them, I bought tickets to facilitate them coming, and afterward they joined. They said, I want to be a part of this. I want to be involved in the League of Women Voters. I said, because we do some substantive kind of things, and so being involved in that.
I forgot 2 things.
Go ahead.
Because I don't want to come into a babble. I'll feel awful.
Go ahead.
I'll feel awful if I forget. We partnered with Telemundo and the Houston Chronicle in KPRC, obviously, for the KPRC mayoral debate. And a great person in her team, but Rita Hicks, who has been a part of the league for a long time, led that, as well as our phone bank on Election Day. And that is a huge effort. It's not easy to pull together a lot of volunteers, including bilingual volunteers, to sit, we in shifts all day long and answer voter questions. That's part of that.
6 a.m.
Yeah, it started at 6 a.m. Yeah, I did a couple shifts, but I managed to not do the 6 a.m. or the it's kind of mid to middle, I just had a lot of fun and then I'm gone, But those things Rita led with teams of volunteers.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the voter empowerment and that voter engagement and information that we're trying to do.
And one of the other
Annie.
things we've done too is groups often invite us out to do voter registration at festivals, at college campuses and things of that nature, in group settings. But one of the things I think that has been critical and that we're working on in terms of expanding our reach for communication, I was invited to the downtown to the University of Texas Public Affairs, Public Health Center to talk to students about voter education. This was their first forum on voter education, and they had students to talk about the constitutional amendment. We also partnered and did with AARP, did a teletown hall, something I have been involved because sometimes the governor or some representative call me and I'm on the line for a town hall meeting. But this was the first time we participated. So the chairman of the board of Metro was there talking about that. Someone from Harris County was there talking about 0700 in Texan, finding out the closest polling places and all the polling places. And I was here talking about the constitutional amendments. I went out and spoke to a union group. Judy Hollinger went out and spoke to another group about the constitutional amendments. And so we are setting up presentations so people will be able to go out and speak to groups about what we do and about issues or advocacy so that they will be aware and be informed, because the constitutional amendments are pretty complex. Every time we have an election, every 2 years after the state legislature in session, we always end up amending the Constitution and adding some more. This past time we added 9 of the 10. The only one that didn't pass was Amendment number 1 that was going to allow municipal judges to serve in more than one jurisdiction. But for the most part, people getting information out to people, and they
Yep.
will know that the league is to go to. We partnered with Metro, separate and apart from that. Forgot the Metro thing, where we put the pamphlets and flyers up with a QR code that sent voters, if they use their cell phone, directly to our website.
And
The
there was
League
a
of
lot
Women
of
Voters.
buses,
Yeah,
right? How many?
800 buses and
800
trains.
buses.
800 buses and trains.
She led that.
So that was pretty exciting to partner with them, and we're going to have an ongoing partnership with them for the primary. And then once you put once the thing that you put the QR code on there, the only thing you have to do is change the information on your website that match to the QR code. Just that. And so for the general election in 2020. So we've got 2 elections coming up in 2020 that we could do that and continue to partner with them in that sense to get information out and about the polling places. They also had something going with Harris County in terms of talking about those 757 polling places.
Right, and that was a big issue. Is this the new way of voting, that you could go to any polling place and vote, which I think is a really big game changer. But other people have been doing it. It's not like Houston was the first person to do it.
No, Fort Bend County has been doing it. Fort Bend has been doing it for quite some time. And now they said Austin, Tarrant County, some of the big counties, big populated counties, are getting on board with it. And so it could change the whole dynamics of the election process.
I think
So-
it's fabulous.
2020. 2020. We're almost there. And we're looking at the 100th anniversary of the founding of the League of Women Voters.
Yep.
In February, the 2 organizations came together. Carrie Chapman Catt and another organization came together. They formed the League of Women Voters, what becomes the League of Women Voters. And then a few months later, Tennessee becomes the 36th state to ratify the 19th Amendment, which made it a part of the Constitution and gave women nationally the right to vote. Women did vote in other places, in isolated places, previously, and could, depending.
I think it was like 12 states had given women the right to vote prior to the 19th Amendment.
And Texas was actually an early ratifier, surprisingly.
Women could vote in the primary.
Right.
Women could actually vote in the primary prior to the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. Only in the primary. No other election, but the primary that women. And they were the
Isn't she
first
fascinating?
State,
This is one of the reasons I'm so happy
like
to be a
Gina
part of the
said,
league. Spending time with Annie, you know?
Right.
Texas was the first state in the South to ratify it. Mississippi, I think, recently ratified it, like in the last 15
well,
years.
you know,
Oh,
it's
boy.
never say never.
So it can happen.
So,
Oh, my God.
so this is going to be a big year. Now, some of the programs we're going to be doing on the Public Affairs Public Access show are going to be about the history of the centennial, and I have done interviews that we're going to air with Angie Boswell, who wrote a book called Texas Women in History, or History of Women. I'm going to get it wrong, and she's going to get me for it. But in fact, she was just speaking in Austin. She's from Arkansas. She was speaking in Austin at the Bullock Museum yesterday. I have some other people who have working on a handbook of women's history, Texas women's history.
That's awesome.
We did an interview with them, and we're going to be airing that this coming year. So we're going to be doing some history segments on this program, and we're also going to be keeping up with other issues that we are. So we're looking forward and looking back. This coming year in 2020. So one of the issues, as a member, I'm on the mailing list for the National, so I always get updates on a weekly basis, I think, on what issues the National organization is focused on. And sometimes we bring those, a local focus, here on the program. So what are some of the things we're going to be looking forward to in 2020 at the League of Women Voters Houston? I do want to say that if you're watching the show and you want to know, I often say LWV Houston is the name. So if you put lwv.houston.org, you're going to come to our organization's website. On Facebook, it'll come to our Facebook page. Hashtags and for the social media.
PMs, right?
So what is it that some of the things that you are looking forward to? I mean, obviously we're probably going to have it some things, even though those may not all be fleshed out totally. I know we've been talking about it at some of the board meetings. So what are we gonna look forward to?
What are we going to do? What are we doing? Okay. Well, if you have us come back at the end of January, we'll have more to tell you. But we are conducting a board retreat, which is going to be so much about the centennial time frame and what we're doing. But it's not meant to be just a celebration on one day or one event. What we're looking to do, and we're creating a committee for it, and we've already started celebrating with Women's Equality Day and the event we had there, but to start, you're going to see more on social media, more facts that you weren't aware of before. We'll probably spend a few hours with Annie and get some facts from Annie, but more and more information. We're considering creating a citywide book club with HBU. Dr. Elizabeth Gregory, I believe. Do you know her? Okay, so involved with women's studies over at HBU. We've talked to her about public policy books and so forth that we'll be able to read together, have meetings about. There will be events, possibly the annual repast will be all about the centennial. So we're pulling different pieces together right now, and all I can say is stay tuned because you're going to be seeing a lot pretty soon.
Earlier, Mama said, I guess back in the summer, I'm thinking back in the summer earlier, Jennifer Rice from KUHF was talking about women in the suffrage movement and talking about particular African American women here in Texas involvement in this in the suffrage movement. And I was saying the interesting part. She said, "Well, I wasn't able to find pictures." And I said, "Where did you look?" I said, "Because there would be no coverage except for in black newspapers about black women being involved in the suffrage movement. Because even when they did a major national march, women had to be, the black women, they wanted them to march at the back of the march when they did the big march that they did. So the idea is that you would have to go to like the Chicago Defender or the Philadelphia Inquirer, which was historically black newspapers that would have covered information about black groups being involved in the suffrage movement. Because she said there weren't pictures. And I said, and then of course you have to go back to microfiche and look at yeah, that was before. I'm sure she, the idea of knowing about going back and looking for that. That kind of information, and hopefully they've transferred all that information over to some disk, right, or something to that effect, so that it will be accessible.
So we'll
if you
have
want
that.
to do research on things that have happened in the past, you have to have some way of being able to do that. But she talked about that, and she came and interviewed me because she was doing something because coming up on the centennial and what that means in terms of women in suffrage. So lots of different groups are focusing on the suffrage, and when the Society for Performing Arts reached out to us with the Martha Graham Dance Company, that company had not been to Texas, I think they said in 15 years, and they wanted to partner with other women organizations, and they did some community outreach to other smaller groups in terms of women reaching out, and the dancers went and performed at some of the local places in terms of teaching a dance theater therapy session like they always do when they come. They go someplace and they partner with a group and do something as a training session for younger people involved. And so the idea of being able to be involved, to get the word out, yes, the League of Women Voters is not just for women, it's for everyone.
Taya, we've got just a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask them to tell your friends
Oh, please.
how to get involved, and so as you're saying, it's not, it's not just for women.
Do you know why I'm doing this?
What's that?
I'm not going to rest tonight if I don't fix this mistake.
Okay.
Dr. Elizabeth Gregory is from the University of Houston. Okay,
Okay.
so I just want to tell you that because somebody's going to see that, and we would be very grateful for her to work with us on the
Facebook Live.
centennial. But again, please tell your friends to vote.
Oh, yes, I will.
So how do people get involved?
Become a deputy voter registrar. Are you a deputy voter registrar?
I'm
Harris County?
doing that. I'm
You're
about to
losing
do that
control,
with,
Jean.
Rising Stars. And I'm also
I never
going
had
to be
it.
at the polling stations December 14th. Go vote.
Oh.
I will be at a poll
You
station
got to
helping
volunteer,
people
or are you
voting.
just
Yes, I'm
gonna be outside?
volunteering.
Okay, because you can actually, because last time Harris County had a program where high school students could volunteer and work the polling place.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing.
That's
Yes.
exciting.
See?
Yes. getting involved. And then see how exciting it was. And make
Oh,
sure
yes.
you take some Facebook pictures and post it
Maybe.
and tweet it and whatever to your friends. And they might be energized by seeing you, prominent. Do the phone bank. Volunteer for the phone bank when they have that, because we're going to be doing it in March
Yes, we are.
for the primary. And the idea of seeing themselves on television, even though it's a local station, they might be mesmerized by the opportunity. Yes, they could be a momentary celebrity.
Oh, yes. That's what I look forward to.
Okay, so how else can people get involved? Who do they need to call? What do they need to do? Now, I mentioned the Facebook page, and
Yeah, you
social
mentioned
media.
the basics. The easiest way is to go to our website,
Yes.
lwvhouston.org, and there, there is a drop down, including volunteerism, and there'll be more of that to come. But there's a section where you can inquire. You can donate, you could become a member, and you can inquire about ways to get involved, and then we will follow up.
We definitely
That's the
follow
easiest
up.
way to do
we
it.
definitely
but
follow up.
yeah, we do. But of course, if you know any of us, or
And we
I know-
had a great partnership. Renee Cross at University
Right.
of Houston, she always had
Oh,
the
yeah.
students to volunteer.
Right.
So with your conversation with the candidates, you benefited from having quite a few of her students volunteering in that effort. And so that makes a
Right, and some from the University of Houston downtown
too.
too.
Yeah. So it's a big operation, and students are constant. I have to have X number of hours volunteer in this class, so tell me what I can do to do that. And the phone bank, some of the students actually volunteered for the phone bank, and so that makes
that's a lot of fun too.
Well, we have done quite a bit this year. I'm looking forward to this coming year, 2020, when a lot more is going to be done. And so I want to thank you both for being here. And I'm sorry it's taken this long to get you on, but I'm glad you're on. So Mary Jane Mudd, President of League of Women Voters of the Houston area, thank you.
Thank you.
Annie Johnson Benifield, Vice President for Voter Services for LVW Houston, thank you, and thank you for all you do. And Taya Youngs, UHD honor student and a rising star, and she's going to keep us up to date on things that are going on with the Rising Stars, and that's our LVW Houston Leadership Program.
Yes.
And so, very glad that you took my gentle urgings and signed up.
We should they were gentle.
Later on, you can tell us what you think of him as a professor, okay?
So again, thank you for joining us Facebook Live, and we're going to be doing this more often now that I know that we can do it. And you can also see, if you missed the show, watch us on YouTube. We'll have that posted before too long. So thank you very much for joining us tonight on Public Affairs Public Access with the League of Women Voters of the Houston area. I'm Gene Preuss. Have a very good evening. Happy New Year.
Oh.